Hello everyone, welcome to my mini student post. I'm going to be talking about ANWR, which is the Alaska Native Wildlife Refuge, specifically the drilling that may or may not be taking place there, and just drilling overall. I do have a tiny human next to me that refuses to sleep until I am done, so I apologize for any and all weird noises or stories you might hear along the way. So ANWR, the Alaska Native Wildlife Refuge, is a 19.6 million acre wildlife refuge located in the northeast corner of Alaska along the north slope, the north coast region. It's roughly the size of South Carolina, to put it in perspective. Within ANWR, there is the Brooks Mountain Range, which is home to hundreds of mountains that are larger than Mount St. Helens or Mount Hood, so it's pretty massive. ANWR is also home to extensive species that include caribou, moose, wolves, birds, tons of fish, and some species that have been listed as endangered. It also is home to potentially billions of gallons of oil. As of now, ANWR has been protected. That protection started in 1960, which means that there is no development, no humans, and no drilling allowed permanently in ANWR. Politicians are attempting to overturn the protection, citing that it would help job production and would produce enough oil revenue to help the national debt. It would also lessen the reliance on foreign nations for oil and potentially produce enough oil for the U.S. to rely on itself for dozens of years. Because ANWR is on native land, there is also a monetary incentive for the native tribes associated with that land to receive a yearly stipend from allowing their native land to be drilled upon. Opponents of drilling say that there is not as much oil as what they believe to be there because there's never been any testing because it's not been allowed. So they don't know if it will actually even reap any benefits that the proponents are saying. There has also been increased fear of potential ozone hazards and environmental hazards because of the drilling. And I know we're not supposed to get into global warming at all, so I won't touch on that. However, the environmental issues would really impede migration, animal populations, and the delicate ecosystem that is currently in place within ANWR. So some environmental repercussions of drilling. The landscape within ANWR is very, very rugged. No one lives there, which means that there are no roads, there are no bridges, there are only small strips of land for bush pilots to land on for needs of search and rescue, because people are allowed temporary permits on a lottery basis over the span of their lifetime to go hunting within there. They have to be Alaska residents or Alaska natives. And so needing to build all of those things, needing to build the roads and the bridges and possibly blow out part of the Brooks Mountain Range for tunnels, and to do anything related to human activity would be extremely disruptive to all of the populations that are there. Drilling is a 24-hour process that's extremely loud and produces a ton of toxins into the air. It's disruptive to animal movement, like I said, migration, possibly hibernation, because the animals won't know what's going on with the noises, the vibrations in the ground, won't allow for them to have hibernation dens. The fences, the roads, and the other barriers built around the drilling sites also harm animals and can really lead to their populations being displaced because they won't be able to bypass those barriers. Oil spills are one of the main hazards and one of the main concerns, as they mean leaching of oil and toxic chemicals into the soil, covering the surrounding area and contaminating the groundwater. Once that groundwater becomes contaminated, that means it can go into adjacent streams and rivers, which also become contaminated and can actually severely harm the animals that drink from them. It can either cause death, cancer, mutations, illness, which affects the populations. And once you have an affected population of animals, say it's spawning salmon and caribou that drink from the water, their main predators, which include bear and wolves, aren't able to eat those populations as much anymore, and they're going to be looking for other food sources that really don't get eaten by the bears or wolves that much, and so they're going to be affected. And then once those food sources run out, then the bears and wolves are going to have smaller populations. It really is just a downstream movement of how everything gets affected just by groundwater being polluted. The land structure overall can change drastically because drilling actually cuts away at the landscape. It's not just one small hole, it's everything that plays into a part of it. They're going to have to level out areas. They're going to have to cut away at the landscape. Once they put those roads in, it's actually going to lead to further erosion, which can lead to flooding. In areas that normally don't have floods, it can change the flow of the rivers. It can put, like I said, tunnels to the mountains, which could affect the overall stability of the landscape. There is a ton of earthquakes in Alaska because there is major fault lines. And so once you have those earthquakes going all the time, which there are dozens of earthquakes every single day in Alaska throughout the state. So once you have just a couple of large earthquakes, everything is going to be demolished and all of the building is going to have to start all over again. Besides the potential of toxic chemicals into the ground, there's also the haze and the chemicals that come out from the drilling equipment itself. As we know by now, air pollution spreads significantly farther than just groundwater pollution. So you're going to have a larger affected area, potentially the villages and the native populations that live around those drilling areas outside of ANWR, than just the animals inside ANWR. So my questions for you all are, how do you feel drilling can affect the environment? And do you feel that drilling has far better economical gain than environmental cost? Some food for thought. Thank you.